send out regular emails to people who are subscribed to my email list. And those don't sell anything like so many emails do. They're simply there to offer support and inspiration. And one of those emails highlighted the powerful concept of giving as a gateway to abundance. And somebody replied to that email with concern, saying that it reminded them of a televangelist who exploited people for their money. People that can't afford anything are given this prosperity teaching from these televangelists saying, give to us, tithe, and that's how God will take care of you. And that's an exploitation. And that's true. That is an exploitation. We don't want to fall for exploitation, whether it be from a televangelist or from anybody telling you to give money because somehow that makes God love you more or bless you more or prosper you more. It doesn't work that way. That's not how prosperity works. And so groups like that or people like that are misusing a sacred truth for their own gain, twisting it for their benefit. And that takes away from the true nature of the principle of abundance that I was trying to impart in that email. The basic principle of abundance is fundamental. It states that giving and receiving are one, and that giving precedes receiving. It's a twofold law. Giving and receiving are one, and giving precedes receiving. So if you think about the idea that nature abhors a vacuum, when you let something go, you are making room for something to return. At Lama's time, back when I was still leading groups live, we had a very well-attended yearly Lama celebration up in the mountains during the summer, where we had a wicker man. We would spend a great deal of time making this beautiful wicker man, and the wicker basket was always heart-shaped in the center of the chest of the wicker man, where people would place their offerings. And we would very meticulously prepare the fire pit, redig the fire pit, cleanse the fire pit, bless the fire pit, really create a sacred space for that fire, bless the fire, bless the wicker man. And then in the midst of the ceremony, people would put their offerings into the heart of the wicker man. And they were usually things like grain or fruit, things like that, that represented abundance to them. The rule was no animal products could go into the wicker man, save a few things that we put in there as the facilitators of the ritual, things like honey, which is technically an animal product, but definitely no pain went into the wicker man. Nothing that was a source of pain to any being ever would go into the wicker man, because the idea of that wicker man is what you put into the fire is what you're going to get back. Now I'm going to pause there and we'll come back to the wicker man. But if you think about the ancient fire ceremonies, how it could have, in the minds of an ancient people, made sense that if their tribe or their community was dwindling and they needed more people, that whatever they put into the fire they got back, that if they sacrificed a human, then maybe that would help their tribe or their community. You could see the logic in that. But I don't think that those people understood that what they were feeding to the fire was pain. And so I think a lot of the human sacrifice and things like that that happened in those old cultures were the demise of those cultures because of that, just because they were getting back what they were putting in. Whereas the enlightened fire ceremony is that you really don't want any pain or fear or anything like that going into the fire. You want only pure gratitude. So back to the wicker man. We would instruct the people when they were giving their offering that they would put it with their palm up into the chest of the wicker man. And the palm up rather than the palm down is a very important symbolism in regards to this type of a ceremony. The palm down, you're in a position to sacrifice and therefore get or take. But if your palm is up, you are giving, not sacrificing. And when your palm is up, you are in the posture of receiving. Giving and receiving are one. Giving precedes receiving. As you give from your heart to the heart of the universe, to the heart of the gods, you're in a position to receive. You're open and receptive to blessings. everything that comes back to you has expanded. So whatever you give, you receive in an expanded form. It increases. That's the basic understanding of that Wicker Man ceremony. We're giving from our heart to the heart of the gods in order to be in the posture to receive more. And that's just the way life works. The same thing goes for any kind of giving, not just giving in a sacred ceremony. Any giving can be a sacred act. Just giving to an organization or giving to a person because you're told it's going to bring you abundance, that's not giving. That's sacrificing. That's palm down. And you're not going to receive the benefit from that because you're told that you must give in order to receive. And usually you must give to us in order to receive. That's not tithing. That's not giving. That's sacrificing. That's your palm down. True giving or true tithing is something that you do with your palm up. And therefore, it's a joint decision between you and the infinite. Every time you give, you ask the infinite, where are we giving today? It's not up to a person or an organization to dictate to you where you give or how you give. It's between you and the infinite. And it's something that's very sacred and secret. It's nobody's business but you and God. So every time you give, it's important to ask the infinite or ask your inner guide, where do I give? And there's always an opportunity for you to give to the most wonderful places if you're open and receptive to the idea of where to give. Now, for me, I give on a regular basis. I learned this lesson a long time ago because it is an abundant thing to do. When I'm giving to an organization or to a person, frequently I end up sticking with that organization or person for a long time. Not because they've asked me for the money, because usually if they've asked me for the money, that's not the person. They're asking me, can you give? Can you give? Oftentimes that's a sign to me that's not the place. But usually when I find a source of spiritual inspiration or spiritual nourishment, infinite intelligence, and I come to an understanding that that's where I am to give my money, I understand that I'm not giving to them. I'm giving through them to the infinite. I'm giving back to my source through them. My gift is mine. I can give it or not. And if I'm choosing to give in order to expand my wealth and expand my abundance, that's between me and the infinite. And we will give where we decide to give, and nobody gets to tell me where that is. Giving comes from the heart, free of any sense of a transactional gesture. It's not transactional in nature. You're giving through the recipient, but you're giving to the infinite. So don't let this concept of giving or tithing confuse you, because that's what the ego wants to do. It wants to use whatever might work for you in a way that's going to keep you down. If you want to try the technique of tithing, all you have to do is ask the infinite, where do I give? And then give a little bit with gratitude. Envision it coming back to you tenfold as an exercise, but that's not why you're giving it. You're giving it out of love. But do see yourself receiving that tenfold return, because that's the law. That's how it works. Then you do that regularly for a few months, and you check. Are my finances better as a result of doing this? Or am I just losing that money? Because if it's not working for you, then stop. At least stop and rethink it. Don't just keep giving. If it's not working for you, stop giving and at least rethink it and recalibrate your approach. But if your financial situation does improve as a result of you giving regularly over a period of time, then you've proven to yourself that it works. And you can keep doing it. And nobody ever has to know. It's not up to anybody's vote whether you give or you don't give. Whether you tithe or you don't tithe, that's your thing. It's up to you. It's a very powerful tool for those of us that understand it and know how to use it. But it's also a horrible weapon that various people and organizations try to use in order to exploit money. And it's up to you how you use that. Integrating our money and our spirituality sometimes can be challenging. The desire for a spiritual life seems to sometimes clash with the concept of money, which is a human invention. But if we ask the infinite, if we ask our guide what to do with our money, and we continually ask, we recognize that we can spiritualize this concept of money for ourselves. And money can be, just like anything else in the world, a tool for the betterment of our lives, for the lives of people around us, and for the planet as a whole. What I do with my money when it's working, and when it's not working, it's because I've forgotten to do this, is I don't think of my money as being mine. I think of it as God's money. And so when I look at my bank account, I just don't even think of my name on there. I think God is the name of that bank account. And God puts the money through me, but it's not mine. When I think of it that way, I get used to asking, how should this be spent? How should I give this? What should I do with this? That spiritualization of my finances allows me to have a healthier relationship with money. Because then money is not something that I'm worried about. Money is not something that I need to go get. I don't have all that palm down stuff where I'm getting and sacrificing and getting and sacrificing. Instead, I've learned that it's not my money. It's God's money. And if I ask God where to spend the money, how to use the money, then my palm is up. And I can give from the heart, where I'm guided internally, not because somebody in the world told me where to give. Then your spending turns into giving too. Instead of, oh, that is so expensive, I can't believe I have to spend so much money on that. You realize, well, this is obviously where the flow needs to be. I'm grateful that I have the money for this. I'm grateful this good or this service or whatever it is that this is for was available to me and that I could afford it. And even though my ego is screaming at me saying this is such a sacrifice, this is so hard, I know that that's not the case because this isn't my money. This is God's money, and this is the way that we are spending it right now. And I'm being guided and led, and I'm asking each and every step of the way what to do. So I am no longer worried about money. I'm no longer upset about money. I now have a spiritualized understanding of what money means. You can use your money as a spiritual practice. You can have your finances reflect divine purpose and divine presence. If you remember that God simply means spirit, and spirit is substance, and there's one substance, there's one spirit, there's one mind, and we all share it. Just like we all share the same air, we all share the same gravity, we all share the same ocean, we all share the same earth. And that's what that source of our lives is. It's the one source, the one substance in all the universe, and we all share it. And that same substance and source that is abundant for one person is abundant for everybody. And it's up to us to shed light on this idea that money can be a spiritual thing. When money is spiritual, we're not so upset about it, and we don't grab onto it so much. And we learn how to exist with the perfect amount of money that's right for us. Not everybody needs to be a multimillionaire. Not everybody wants to be that. They may think they want to be. They may be convinced by their own egos that that's what they want to be. But when it comes down to it, that's not right for them necessarily. But that doesn't mean that they have to go without. That doesn't mean that they have to be always in a state of fear or upset in regards to their money. They can have their money work out for them in a wonderful spiritual way. So we want enough money to have all of our needs met, but not so much money that it becomes a burden to us. And the infinite knows exactly what that looks like. The principle of giving and receiving is a very important thing. As you give, you do receive, and giving precedes receiving. So what I've discovered for myself is that when I give from the heart, for me, that 10% off the top of my income, when I give that back to the infinite, all I'm doing is opening myself up to the flow of abundance. And it's when I started that practice many years ago that my financial problems started to evaporate. Not overnight, but just like with exercise, it did start to work over time. But I had to start slowly. Nobody was checking up on me It wasn't like somebody said, have you tithed yet? Did you tithe? Because that's not tithing. If you have a church or somebody like that that's asking you, where's the tithe? Where's the tithe? That's a tax. That's not a tithe. A tithe comes from your decision to give, that you love something so much that you're willing to support it, that you are shown where to give. Everybody's so different. For me, I do tend to give where I'm spiritually fed, but some people will give to a nature conservancy. They'll give to a homeless shelter, wherever they're guided and led, and they're making that joint decision with their inner guide. And when they do, they notice that their abundance increases, and then they'll have more to give. And it's a wonderful, beautiful thing. But don't allow yourself to get snowed by people who are using this concept of tithing and giving as a means to hook you into giving to them. Because that's not where it's at. That's none of their business where you give. Just because you learn the concept of tithing from a certain place doesn't mean that they have claim to your tithe. And anybody that believes that they're entitled to your donation isn't. As a general rule, if they think it should be coming to them, it shouldn't. You can discover the profound blessing of sacred giving by letting the divine energy flow through you and guide you. And then you are giving with your palm up symbolically. Therefore, your hand is already open, representing the posture necessary for you to receive all of the blessings. Until we are willing to make that first step, we're not in the posture to receive. And that goes for a lot of things. You don't get a door to open if you're not knocking on it. You don't get an answer to your question unless you ask the question. And similarly, you don't receive unless you give. And how you give and where you give is a very important question between you and the infinite. And you will have that understanding the more you practice it. And you should never feel like you're giving beyond your means. That is not wisdom. Anybody that thinks that you should give until it hurts, they're not on the right wavelength for you. For me, the 10% is a wonderful guide because it's not so much of a gift that it's going to feel too hard for me, but it's enough of a gift that it makes a difference. But not everybody feels comfortable starting at 10%. So start with $1. Start with 1% if you feel like experimenting with this process. But don't believe it until you prove it to yourself. And if you can't prove that it works to yourself, then don't do it. Do not do it, because then you're just wasting your money. But if you've proven to yourself that this works, that as you give, so you receive, then you know it works and you don't have to believe anything. You've put it to the test and it's proven itself to you. If it hasn't worked, you either know that this isn't going to work for you or you need to rethink it because you're not doing it right. Either way, it's up to you to prove it to yourself and only do what works. Don't believe anybody. Results are your proof. And that goes with any kind of magic, but especially this idea of tithing. Because the idea of tithing is something that's misused and very abused. And that's unfortunate because it's an actual wisdom principle and it's an actual magical tool that can be used for your personal financial benefit when it's used conscientiously and judiciously. If it's something that sounds interesting to you, try it and prove it to yourself. Give it a few months though, just like with an exercise program. And if you've proven to yourself that this works, if you've proven to yourself that it doesn't work, either way, it's up to you, nobody else. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. Until next time, blessed be.